What role did Citgo or the Venezuela parties play during the topping period?
They didn't really play much of a role because, again, I think they had wanting to preserve their option to be a bidder. They requested that they not receive confidential information about the process, etc. So the normal updates we were giving to the sales process parties did not include Citgo and Venezuela, but as we know, they ended up not submitting a bid.
And I think everybody in this courtroom knows the answer to this question, but just to keep the story going, what was the special master's final decision during the topping period?
We selected Gold Reserve as the best bid.
To what extent did the special master, in selecting Gold Reserve as its final recommended bid, take into account that September 2023 preliminary evaluation we had talked about before? Is that something you went back to and looked at again, or?
Not at all. I think it's completely irrelevant.
Mr. Weisenberger said that if he were in your role, he would have said, well, wait a second, we've got these bids that are much lower than we had in our preliminary evaluation. I would have thought I need to start all over or something of that nature. Is that something, any kind of discussion like that the special master and his advisors had?
No, not at all. And the reason for that is what I stated earlier, and I'll restate again. That valuation was essentially 2 years old. It was relying on projections that turned out to be nowhere close to reality. The 2025 projection of EBITDA was double the actual projected EBITDA at the time that we were receiving these bids. That obviously market multiples had also changed, and most importantly, the preliminary evaluation back in 2023 did not consider the contingent liabilities, and at this point in time when we're receiving these bids, you still had the potential $3 billion potential liability with respect to the 2020s, or half the equity depending upon how you want to look at it.
Did the special master conduct an updated DCF valuation in 2025 to help evaluate these bids?
No, we did not.
So how did the special master know whether the bids he was considering were sufficient if he didn't have a DCF valuation to look at?
I think the process itself uncovers, I should say, what the market is prepared to pay. This was an extensive a sales process as I've ever been involved in. I can't recall any other merger transaction where I've gone, or sale transaction where I've gone to 135 parties. So this was as extensive as it gets. Everyone was given access to voluminous information in the virtual data room. There were no particular impediments in the process to any specific bidder, and I think that it provides insight into the market value of the company because it's what a willing buyer is prepared to pay. To
what extent did the special master consider the contingent risks posed by the 2020 bondholders litigation when it recommended the Gold Reserve Dalinar bid for the final recommendation that did not itself have a deal with the 2020 bondholders?
Look, we have always and continue to have today the same concerns about the Dalinar bid and its ability to close given the 2020 bondholder risk. That hasn't changed. However, as I said earlier, we felt it was appropriate to apply a different set of criteria in terms of how heavily we weighted certainty versus price in the selection of a final bid, again, being cognizant of Judge Stark's stalking horse order and some of the statements that were contained therein. Here, we were looking at a very substantial difference in price. Over more than $3 billion difference in price. And while we still had concerns about the certainty of the Dalinar bid, we felt that a price differential of that magnitude outweighed our concerns about the certainty of the Dalinar bid, and therefore we chose Dalinar. And the way Judge Stark, in his order, implied that if there was not an improvement over the Red Tree bid, he might not accept any bid. And in fact, Redtree had not improved its bid. So,
and in answering the next question, I want you to just keep in mind, again, confidentiality concerns regarding other bidders. But to what extent, if at all, after selecting Gold Reserve as the final recommended bid, did the special master receive any unsolicited bids?
Yes, we did.
And what did the special master do when in receipt of these unsolicited bids?
Approached the court and requested permission to engage in discussions with those bidders.
Do you recall how many unsolicited bids the special master received following his selection of Gold Reserve as and I should give you a time frame, to like about between the August 18th date that we were going to have the hearing,
yes,
starting with July 2nd when we made the final recommendation and going to August 18th when the hearing was going to take place. Do you recall how many unsolicited bids the special master received?
I believe 3.
And how did the special master manage receipt of these unsolicited bids in light of the fact that it was heading towards an August 18th sale hearing with its Dalinar Gold Reserve recommendation to be discussed?
So, I mean, these unsolicited bids, at least 2 of them were non-qualified, i.e. it expressed to us their intention to try to achieve, in some cases, a deal with the 2020 bondholders, in some cases, a deal with Rosoro, Koch, and other junior creditors, but they had not been able to affect either of those outcomes. So it was those were non-qualifying bids. We then received a bid that did not have those deficiencies, that bid being the amber bid. That bid was received, I want to say, on Friday, August 11th, late in the evening on Friday. We asked for an ex parte conference with the judge, which I believe we had that following Monday, and explained that, number one, that we needed some time to discuss and clarify the substance of the amber bid, but it looked like it could potentially be superior. If we were to deem it superior, there was the requirement that Gold Reserve had a 3-day match right. And so, given the timing, it was realistically impossible to kind of get all that done prior to the 18th, the scheduled sale hearing on the 18th. So we requested an extension of the sales hearing.
And just for the record, I had the benefit of being able to check my phone to see the date. So the 11th was actually a Monday.
Oh, okay.
So we meant the Friday before.
Yes, the Friday before. The 8th, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Sorry about that.
I was you got very close there. That didn't sound quite right. So to be clear on the schedule, so you got the recommendation came in on that Friday, the 8th, and then the hearing was not that Monday, but the following Monday?
Yes.
Okay. So how was the special master, if you recall, instructed to proceed in light of these bids that came close to the sale hearing?
Well, there continued to be hearing on the 18th, but the sales hearing itself was postponed. And we were instructed by the court to be free to engage with anyone during a period of time up until the 22nd, the end of the 22nd of August, which we did.
And by the end of the day, on the 22nd, you mean 11:59 p.m.?
Yes, correct.
And what, if any, and that the 11:59 p.m. was a deadline for what to happen exactly?
Final bids.
Okay. Did the special master in that period of time where he was permitted to engage with any of the bidders leading up to that August 22nd, 11:59 p.m. deadline, engage with any of the bidders?
Yes. We engaged, including Elliott. And again, in each case, those bidders were trying to put together a combination of a deal with the 2020s and some kind of deal with junior creditors, certainly Koch and Rosoro, and potentially creditors below that. We encouraged all of them to, try their best to put together the best combination of price and certainty.
And there were three bidders that were competing at that point with each other for that?
In addition to Gold Reserve, but there were three other bidders,
okay,
including Amber.
And so at the end of the day on August 22nd at 11:59 p.m., what had the special master actually received?
We received the current Amber Energy bid.
And without using names of other bidders, did you receive any other bids?
Not that we're qualifying.
Okay. And what do you mean by that when you say not that we're qualifying?
Their bid was predicated on getting a deal with the 2020s, but they didn't have it signed. Predicated on reaching a deal with Receso, but they didn't have that signed. So there was some element of their bid that had not been completed.
Okay. At a high level, can you describe the Amber bid that was received?
That bid was a bid of $5.9 billion, with the possibility of that bid being increased to $6.4 billion. That bid is primarily either cash from their bank borrowing or what we would call market value paper, i.e. convertible preferred. I call it market value paper because there are actual cash buyers of that paper at par. I think a point that Mr. Turkel made earlier in his testimony. The difference between the 5.9 and the 6.4 was that in addition to paying creditors down through Coke, the Amber bid also offered $75 million to Gold Reserve in exchange for its 500 of claim. Were that to be accepted, their bid would have been valued at 6.4. I think, as we all know, it has not been accepted by Gold Reserve as we sit here today. But Amber's bid also authorizes the special master permission of the court to potentially pay that $75 million to creditors if it's by Gold Reserve to achieve further reduction in claims.
And how about in terms of the 2020s? What does the Amber bid include, as you understand it?
Yes, it has a deal with 2020s.
And how did the Amber bid compare to the Red Tree Stalking Horse bid that the special master had been comparing a few months ago, or would recommend it as a stalking horse a few months before that?
It had the same degree of certainty and, in fact, was materially higher.
Material higher in what respect?
Price.
What was the special master's view of the proposal that was made as part of the Amber bid to Gold Reserve? Again, I'm referring to the $75 million in exchange for discharge of $500 million of Gold Reserve's judgment that you were just describing.
Well, again, we had been encouraging all of the bidders to improve their bid to go down further the chain of claims past Receso and Coke. At one point in time during that week leading up to the 22nd, it appeared to be quite possible that we could have three bids that were identical in terms of price. That we would have three bids that theoretically all three would have had deals with the 2020s and all three would have paid down through Coke. So we were encouraging each of those bidders to try to reach further down and strike a deal with Gold Reserve as part of their bid.
And what was the special master's view of Amber's financing?
Amber's financing is quite certain, and we're very comfortable with Amber's financing.
What's the basis for that?
Well, again, the basis, I mean, they have full financing commitments that Weil's banking team has reviewed and has signed off on. And importantly, they have a deal with the 2020s that takes away the risk of the 2020s potentially to block their financing structure.
So after you received these bids on August 22nd at 11:59 p.m. or whatever time they actually came in, I guess before that, can you describe the process that the special master went through to compare the Amber bid to the Dallin or Gold Reserve bid that had previously been recommended as the final recommendation in order to determine whether or not it had in fact received a superior unsolicited bid?
Sure. So again, the essential trade-off here has always been and continues to be a trade-off between price and certainty. And so we conducted an analysis for the special master that looked at a variety of, looked at four specific scenarios for potential, and looked at the outcome to creditors under each of those four scenarios.
All right, so those, I'm just going to walk you through those if that's okay. And these are scenarios based on what? What's the in these scenarios?
Well, number one, do you choose the Dalinar bid or do you choose the Amber bid? And number two, what is the outcome in the 2020s litigation? Either favorable for the bondholders or unfavorable for the bondholders.
Okay, got it. All right, so let's walk through those. So let's start with saying the special master had selected the gold reserve Dalinar bid. What was the evaluation by the special master and his advisors as to what the outcome would be if the 2020s were to lose their litigation?
The Dalinar bid would go forward as did and would result in $7.4 billion of recovery to the creditors. And
then again, still if the special master were to stick with the gold reserve Dalinar bid, what was the assessment as what would happen if the 2020s were to win?
There was the potential that the Dalinar bid would not close, and that would also have the impact of raising the potential claim of the 2020s above the settlement amount up to as much as $3.02 billion. So if you were to go forward on that basis, you would have lost the potential benefit of getting that claim at a discount, and that would reduce recoveries to the creditors substantially, particularly in the case of Rosoro and particularly in the case of Coke, who would be totally wiped out, and Gold Reserve, who would be substantially reduced.
Gold Reserve or Rosoro?
I'm sorry, Rosoro. Okay, excuse me, I misspoke.
Under the Amber bid now, so if they selected the Amber bid, what was the analysis that the special master and his advisors came up with if the 2020s were to win?
Again, if the 2020s were to win, the Amber bid would go forward, and we would have the benefit of capturing that $895 million worth of discount, producing far better recoveries to creditors than the circumstance where the Dalinar bid was chosen and the 2020s received a favorable decision.
And how about if the special master had selected the Amber bid, but the 2020s lost their litigation in front of Judge Vela?
There would be two potential outcomes there. One potential outcome is the court could decide to let the Amber bid proceed, or alternatively, the court had the ability, with 2020 hindsight here, to reject the Amber bid, which would result in a rebidding, a quick rebid. And under that set of circumstances, we believe that it's likely that those bidders who had been allocating significant funds to the satisfaction of the 2020s litigation at risk, or settlement, would redirect some portion, all or some portion funds to an approved bid for judgment creditors. And this essentially encompasses what we have termed the way option to the benefit of the Amber bid. The Amber bid prevents the downside where the 2020s win and their claim balloons up by capturing this $895 million worth of discount, while at the same time, if the 2020s lose, the court would have the flexibility to reject the Amber bid. We would have a rebid, which we think actually would be a positive thing, because we believe, again, that bids to the creditors would go up as bidders took funds that had previously been allocated to a 2020 settlement and redirected all or a portion of them to the judgment creditors. The other factor that we hadn't touched on here that's important is the timing of Judge Vela's decision. Back when we chose Dalinar, prior to the chose Dalinar back in June, we did not know the timing of Judge Failer's decision. Now we know the timing of Judge Failer's decision, and that gives us the opportunity to create this one-way option where the court has the benefit of 20/20 hindsight after Judge Failer's decision.
So the risk of asking you another question that everybody in the courtroom could answer is, what was the special master's determination regarding whether the amber sale transaction was a superior proposal?
He determined that it was.
Following that determination, there was a matching period under the RSPA?
That's correct.
Can you briefly describe what happened during that matching period?
Yes. Gold Reserve increased its bid by approximately $500 million, which was accomplished through reaching agreement with Volaris, whose claim was $700 and some odd million, but at the same time withholding $200 million of their claim that they had previously agreed to give up, the net being of those two numbers being roughly a $500 million increase.
To what extent, if at all, during that matching period, did the special master speak with Gold Reserve and its representatives regarding what Gold Reserve could do to either match or even improve above the amber bid?
Well, again, we've been consistently talking with Gold Reserve, as evidenced by one of the emails that you previously entered into evidence, that we needed them to improve their financing. And improving their financing is a function of a couple of different items. Number one, despite verbal assurances, their bank commitment papers have never expressly said that the banks would close in the event that the 2020s were able to successfully enforce their lien. And obviously, if the 2020s were able to successfully enforce their lien, they could vote to prevent the merger that was necessary to complete the Dalinar financing. So that's one thing they could have done, which they did not, and which we have been asking for months. The second thing is Gold Reserve has a $1.8 billion preferred highly confident letter, which they would contend, along with their ABL, would give them the capacity to either pay off or reach agreement with the 2020s if that became necessary. That highly confident letter is not committed financing. We certainly understand that J.P. Morgan is a reputable bank, that they don't issue those highly confident letters lightly, but the fact remains that market conditions change, they're not obligated to fund, and that does not constitute committed financing. Secondly, with respect to their ABL, they did take the step of increasing their ABL by an additional $500 million, but there are conditions around their ability to draw that ABL to make payments for the 2020s, and ABL, your ability to draw is based on the availability of underlying that APL, as well as some liquidity provisions, overall company liquidity provisions. So the concept, and by the way, that ABL is actually there to provide necessary working capital for the company. So there's no assurance that that $1 billion of ABL would be available, some in whole or in part, to satisfy a potential claim by the full claim by the 2020s, or even a negotiated settlement with the 2020s.
So based on that, to what extent did the special master view the Gold Reserve Dalinar new August bid as improving on certainty as compared to the prior bid that was recommended on July 2nd by the special master?
We've been improved in a material way.
The final topic here, getting us up to this hearing, is that the special master's advisors that need to compare this new Dalinar bid, which improved in price and sounds like only had an immaterial change from the special master's perspective on certainty, against the amber bid that you had decided had been a superior proposal, a couple days before that, correct?
That's correct.
So how did the special master go about comparing now the new Dalinar bid to the amber superior proposal?
Again, we did those same scenarios that I described earlier, which looked at the recovery to creditors under these different potential outcomes, and came to the conclusion that the amber bid represented the best combination of price and certainty. Again, because of the effective one-way option that's embedded in the amber bid by virtue of the timing of Judge Fela's decision, the court will have the ability to have 20/20 hindsight in the event that the 2020s lose. The court could determine that the amber bid unduly enriched the 2020s, in which case you'd have a rebid, and we think that rebid would have positive results for the creditors.
What's the difference in price between the Dalinar revised bid against the amber bid?
It depends on how you want to treat it, but let's say $1.5 to $2 billion.
And what's when you say depends how you want to treat it, what is the...
Because the $75 million cash for the 500 gold reserve claim has not been agreed to. So the $2 billion difference would be excluding that potential 500, and the 1.5 would be assuming that either gold reserve is eventually agrees to that, or it's offered to junior creditors in a similar amount. And then the difference would be $1.5 billion.
Okay. And ultimately, what was the special master's determination weighing that difference in price in light of the overall bids?
Again, the special master just determined that the amber bid represented the best potential combination of price and certainty.
Okay. Nothing further. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, great. It's 11 o'clock. We will take our morning break. Let's try to keep it to 15 minutes, and then we'll do cross-examination.
Can I talk to you guys for 1 minute? That's not fair to company.
That all
I don't think I have any CDR material. Somebody could go look it up.
But it was one of the few times I forgot to instruct them not to mention the name of the bidder. Do you need to mention their name? Then right, okay, yeah. I don't know if they did.
They did. I wouldn't have my secret. You wouldn't need to redact the transcript, right? Unless CDR is maybe impressive. You don't need to be on the record confirming. Right.
Right, yeah, I think that's fine. Yeah. Yeah, they were all, I think it's easy for me because I have the script all button. They're real, rather. Right, it's all publicly available in writing. Yeah. That's why I was like, I just didn't want it. I got fixed for one thing. I never really count. It's always look at the calendar. Texting my wife. Direct's going well so far. Right. Got another goddamn Amazon package. But if I don't put my drink on snooze,
I don't have my regular. I do my wife.
I just snooze it. But, normally I don't care that much. But,
Were you on the beach with white case?
where was it?
I'm going to do VP 76 today. We didn't talk about that on my side. I'm not going to do it.
That's always the problem. Yeah. It's really easy to control the narrative.
Exactly.
The problem was you didn't. Oh, really?
Mission flight, mission trial. Yeah.
No, it was not that Saturday. Oh, you know what? No. Leave it. I think so. Let's leave it. You can have one
Conversation again in
5 minutes. Yeah, it won't be 5 minutes. Just sit up there so nobody accidentally talks to you.
Yeah.
Why don't we just give him for the court right now?
I just want to ask you.
Yeah, go ahead. Where's this year?
Why don't you put one up on the witness stand right now? That'll be easy.
Oh, I'm not just. I was looking for you for coffee and you fled. Well, after we hit the milestone. But that's plenty. We're on 11 minutes. Now, my question is, how many of the non-tender ones do you own? No, that's a serious question. No, your client. That cannot be the case. No, your client. No, not your client.
I'm trying to make it 30.
It's hard though. This is I'm telling you.
I know. We got 7 hours, and I got to do them again tomorrow on valuation. He's going to talk mostly about process today, valuation tomorrow, and I got to cross that tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, I was like listening to the Zoom going, this
is going to be SWAT, fire, and rubber.
Very fine.
You are ready for cross-examination?
Good morning, Your Honor. Alex Solitarovsky on behalf of Citgo and PDVH.
Welcome, and you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Mr. Heltz. It's nice to see you again.
Sir, in this entire sale process, I understand there was never a time when the special master spoke to a bidder and told them what the leading bidder's bid was and asked that second bidder to beat it. Is that right?
When you say the special master, do you mean literally Mr. Pincus?
Well, him or any of his representatives.
And are you referring to disclosure of bids that were not otherwise public?
Yes.
To my knowledge, we've never disclosed bids that were not otherwise public. Certainly, we've encouraged people to beat bids that they were aware of, and in the absence of being aware of bids, we've encouraged them to increase their price. Again, I'm not aware that at any time we disclosed bids that were not public to other bidders.
In that sense, the special master never really conducted an auction for the PDVH shares, right, Mr. Hilt?
No, I don't think that's an accurate characterization.
You never considered getting all the bidders together in a room and asking them to compete against each other on price in real time, right?
We never had them all in a room at the same time, but we were conducting an auction and encouraging them to beat each other. I don't understand the distinction about all being in the room at the same time.
Okay. The bidders can't know what to beat if they don't know what the current leading bid is at any given time, right, Mr. Hiltz?
Well, they do know what the current leading bid is at any particular point in time.
Well, when it's publicly disclosed, right?
That's correct. And so, for example, we chose Dalinar at the end of at the beginning of the topping period. They knew what that bid was. They knew what they had to beat.
But in the intervals in between phases of the bidding process, nobody knew who the leading bidder was at any given time, right?
Well, again, if there was a leading bidder, if we had changed our recommendation, we would have disclosed that, and then they would know.
Special Master was considering two factors in evaluating these bids, price and closing certainty, right?
Yes.
And as among serious bidders, at least, closing certainty meant whether you had a deal with the 2020s, right?
No.
Okay, that was the principal element of closing certainty you were considering among qualified bidders, right?
Not necessarily, no.
What were the other dimensions you were considering of closing certainty?
Well, for example, one of the bidders was a strategic bidder who was in a position to finance this off its existing credit facilities. So a deal with the 2020s was not necessary for them at all. Theoretically, a buyer could have gone out and structured financing that was at the unsecured holding company level and would have avoided the issue with the 2020s. People could have raised sufficient money in reserve to pay off the 2020s in the event there was an adverse decision. There were many mechanisms to deal with the 2020s outside of reaching an agreement with them.
So you either had to have an agreement with the 2020s or the ability to close a deal without an agreement. Is that fair?
Yes.
You mentioned a strategic bidder that potentially had the ability to finance without borrowing in a way that the 2020s might disrupt. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Strategic bidders have some advantages in a sale process like that, don't they?
Yes.
They also sometimes have synergies that create value, right?
Sometimes.
Or they could eliminate duplicative costs, or they could increase revenue in ways that financial buyers can't, right?
Yes.
You reached out to a lot of strategic buyers at the outset of this process, right, Mr. Hiltz?
Yes.
And I think you mentioned that two of them, who I won't name, early on made bids but then dropped out. Is that right?
Well, actually, in the first round of bidding back in 24, in our second round where we had 5 bidders, 3 of those bidders were strategic bidders. The majority of the bids we received were from strategic bidders.
And by the end, all you had was financial buyers, right?
That's correct.
You never reached out to the strategic buyers who dropped out of the process to ask them what might have made the process more appealing, right?
When you say what would have made the process more appealing, there's nothing about the process itself that we designed that is in any way unusual, and I don't see how any, quote, change to that process would have changed anything. Because if I may finish, what we did do was got input from buyers as to what their issues were. And the predominant feedback we got back from buyers were that there were 2 issues. One issue was the 2020s, the other issue was alter ego. Those were the main issues bothering buyers. And we attempted to solve each of those issues. And we attempted to solve those issues by, early on in this process, the special master tried to negotiate a deal with the 2020s. That deal would have been available to bidders if they wished to avail themselves of it, but they didn't have to take it. But it would have provided a level playing field, and in fact, at the time, it looked like we could have accomplished that at numbers below where we currently are with respect to settlement with the 2020s. But we got pushback from sales process parties who didn't like that, and so we put that to the side. We also encouraged asked Judge Stark for a channeling motion to try to deal with the alter ego claims. So we were listening to bidders, understanding the major problems that they had, and the special master was making efforts to solve those identified problems.
My question was a lot simpler than that, Mr. Hiltz. You never reached out to the strategic bidders who didn't participate to ask them what might make the process more appealing, right?
No.
You said that strategic bidders and perhaps bidders in general had two major issues causing them concern. One was alter ego and the other was the 2020s, right?
Yes.
Alter ego has been substantially resolved by the Judge Rakoff's summary judgment ruling, right?
Yes.
I think we heard that ruling described as monumental in terms of its impact on bidders, right?
Yes.
The 2020s are going to be resolved one way or another by the end of this month, right, Mr. Hiltz?
Yes.
The special master never considered postponing the sale process until after those two issues got resolved, right?
No.
If it had, the bidding landscape might have been very different, right?
Well, again, we're in the fortunate position where the alter ego issues are off the table, as you just suggested. We only learned in, whenever it was July, about the fact that Judge Fela would, in fact, make a decision before the end of September. Prior to that, we had no idea when that decision would be forthcoming, and postponing the bid in the context of declining financial results for the company for an indeterminate period of time, as I stated earlier, did not make sense. Now, we're in the fortunate position where we have the ability to have this one-way option that I described before, where the amber bid provides for downside protection in the event that the 2020s win, and if the 2020s lose, Judge Stark will have the benefit of 2020 hindsight in determining whether he wants to permit the amber bid to go forward or make a determination that it unjustly enriches the 2020s and reject the amber bid, in which case we will have a rebid, which we think will be positive for the creditors.
TSA that's part of the amber bid requires the bondholders to seek a stay of the litigation before Judge Fela, right?
Yes.
If that stay is granted, then we're never going to know if they win or lose, right, Mr.
She already said she would not grant a stay.
But the bid that the special master recommended had a TSA that required the bondholders to seek a stay, right?
Yes.
Okay, and that wouldn't have provided for 2020 hindsight if it was granted, right?
If she had granted it, and she has stated that she won't.
Right. If the bondholders had complied with what was in the TSA the special master recommended, and that stay was granted, court wouldn't have 2020 hindsight. It'd be flying blind, right?
Well, that's an if that's not applicable as we sit here today.
I want to talk more about how the special master weighed price and closing certainty throughout the process. Those are often two important elements of a deal for a seller, right?
Yes.
And at the outset of a sell-side engagement, Evercore would want to understand from the seller which one's more important, right? Or how to weight them.
I'm sorry, repeat the question.
The special master in this case never really had a strong understanding of how to weigh price versus closing certainty, right?
I'm not sure I agree with that statement.
Well, do you recall you got questions every now and then from bidders about whether they should focus on improving certainty by getting a deal with the 2020s or finding a way to pay more money, perhaps through adding more credit bids? And you weren't able to give those bidders guidance on that question, were you, Mr. Hiltz?
We told them to try to improve both.
I want to take a look at VP 77. Let's blow up the email so we can see it.
I can't read that from here.
We're going to blow up the top.
I'm sorry.
Are you able to see it now, Mr. Hiltz?
Yep.
Is it also in this large binder?
It is, Your Honor. It's Exhibit VP 77. The VP exhibits are at the front of the binder.
Well, you also have a hard copy if you want it.
No, it's fine. It's fine here.
Mr. Hiltz, you recognize this as an email dated June 23rd, 2025 from Mr. Bentley to Mr. Kirtland, who represents Gold Reserve?
Yes.
And you received this email as part of the Project Horizon at Evercore.com email listserv, right?
Yes.
Okay. We offer Exhibit VP 77 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection.
It's admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Hiltz, you can see that Mr. Bentley summarizes a call that he had with Mr. Kirtland earlier on which Mr. Kirtland had asked for some guidance on whether the Gold Reserve Consortium should pursue securing a TSA with the 2020 bondholders or instead increase the amount of its existing bid by providing consideration to Siemens and or Valores. Do you see that?
Yes.
And do you recall that Gold Reserve, in fact, had asked that question to the Special Masters team?
Yes.
In the second paragraph, in the second sentence, Mr. Bentley writes, in terms of your specific request, the Special Master does not intend to give Gold Reserve guidance on which of the two options are better. Do you see that?
Yes.
And in fact, the Special Master didn't give Gold Reserve guidance on which of those two were better, right?
That's correct.
The Special Master didn't know which of those two would be better in the court's view, right?
I don't think that's necessarily accurate.
The Special Master did know, but advised?
No, we didn't know which would be better in the court's view. I think the Special Master may have had its own view.
But whatever the Special Master's view was, you didn't tell that to Gold Reserve, the lead bidder at the time, right?
Not in response to this particular email, no.
The next day, you got another request for guidance from a bidder. Let's take a look at VP 148, and let's blow up the email at the bottom just to get oriented. So this is Mr. Ying, your partner, writing to the Project Horizon at Evercore NY listservs, right?
I see it.
Okay. And then in the next email above that, Mr. Strong, your other partner, gives an update about a call he had with Elliot, he says just now. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay. In the second to last sentence of Mr. Strong's email, he writes, they would like some guidance from us, referring to Elliot. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay, and you didn't give Elliot any guidance at that point as to how to improve their bid, right?
Well, I'm not sure that this email is Elliot asking us which they should focus on, price or certainty. It seems that the email is expressing frustration about their negotiations with the 2020s and asking us for some guidance on how they should interact with the 2020s, not a weighting of price versus certainty.
Well, let's take a look at the top half of the document, VP 148. And I want to begin with the email you wrote in response to Mr. Strong on June 24th. Sir, you write, shouldn't we ask directly about how he feels about the trade-off between a deal with the 2020s with no ratchet down if they lose in SDNY versus a substantial increase in compensation to the waterfall coupled with certainty? Do you see that?
Yes.
And you're writing to your internal team there, right?
Yes.
And by he, you were referring to Judge Stark, right?
That's correct.
Okay, you didn't know how Judge Stark might react to the two different kinds of deals you were considering, one perhaps with more certainty and the other perhaps with more price, right?
Well, it was really a question of this ratchet down provision. I think Judge Stark had previously expressed concerns that a settlement with the 2020s, if they were to lose in SDNY, could overcompensate the 2020s. And so we pushed several bidders to try to incorporate a feature that would ratchet down the settlement in the event that there was a decision adverse to the 2020s in SDNY. So, for example, you'd have a settlement of $2 billion, but if there was an adverse decision, that settlement would drop to $1 billion. We encouraged Red Tree to do that. We encouraged basically everyone who was in negotiation with the 2020s to try to incorporate a ratchet down provision, but none of them were successful in doing that. But again, we were cognizant of Judge Stark's concern about overcompensating the 2020.
A little more nuanced than just how to weigh price versus certainty, but the thing you had for the court at this point was essentially how many dollars is it worth paying or losing in order to resolve the closing risk presented by the 2020s, right?
Again, we are trying to determine if any deal with the 2020s that did not have a ratchet down provision would be a deal that Judge Stark would be prepared to approve.
Okay, that's an important thing to know in evaluating bids a week out from the final recommendation date, right?
That's why I suggested what I suggested.
If you had known that earlier, you might have been able to give better guidance to bidders, right?
Known how Judge Stark felt about a deal without a ratchet down?
Or having your own view on that you felt confident about?
Well, again, we were in the process of trying to get all of the bidders to negotiate a deal with the 2020s that included a ratchet down. When it started to become clear that that was not going to be successful, we wanted to understand how the judge would feel about a deal with the 2020s that did not include a ratchet down.
Hard for bidders to compete if they don't know where the goalposts are, right?
I don't know what that means in this context.
If they don't know what's more important, paying more money or making a deal with the 2020s?
They're both important, and it wasn't necessarily a deal with the 2020s. It was having certainty, which is not solely a function of reaching agreement with the 2020s. As I stated earlier, you could be someone who needed a deal didn't need financing that was dependent upon the 2020s, or could be upset by the 2020s. You could have sufficient funding to pay off the 2020s at full face. You could borrow on an unsecured basis at the holding company level. There are a variety of things you could do to address certainty without having a deal with the 2020s.
One option the special master had, hypothetically, would have been to say, we're going to give zero value to any deal with the 2020s. I don't care about the 2020s. Everybody compete on price. Give me your best price. Maybe even have an auction on that basis. Might have got higher bids then, right, Mr. Hiltz?
Potentially, but bids without the best combination of price and certainty.
You didn't know what was the best combination of price and certainty at that time, right?
Well, again, we, as the special master and his advisors, were making a judgment on what's the best combination of the two. You certainly can't ignore certainty when choosing a recommended bid. I mean, we get these bids from, people like Blue Water, okay, who have no financing in place at all. We get a bid from Black Diamond where they haven't even done any due diligence, and the bid is contingent upon due diligence. Those bids are at higher prices. I assume you're not suggesting that we should be recommending those bids.
Forget about people whose financing is questionable. Forget about Blue Water and Black Diamond. I'm talking about serious bidders who have financing. If you just told those people, forget about the 2020s, compete on price, we might have been in a very different world today, right?
That's not clear.
We don't know.
Might have, but I don't believe that that's in any way instructive to our process of choosing a bid which we believe that represents the best combination of price and certainty.
Well, what if you'd run an auction like that and you got a price, say, much higher than the current Amber bid, much closer to what we at least contend is fair market value, and you recommended it, and then let's say the downside risk of the 2020 litigation occurs and they block the closing. Well, can't we have a do-over with the benefit of 2020 hindsight, just like you're suggesting we could do if the Amber bid's approved?
Well, you're missing one important fact, which is if the 2020s are successful, then suddenly their claim, instead of being settled for $2.125 billion, is going to need to be settled at $3.02 billion or some higher number.
Okay, but then at least know it was worth paying them. We don't know that today, right?
Well, again, that's in the nature of this one-way option that we believe makes the Amber bid attractive, because it gives us the opportunity, for the benefit of 2020 hindsight, to know whether we've overpaid for them or not. And if the bid is overpaying for them, gives Judge Stark the flexibility to not approve that bid. And we'll have that 2020 hindsight, which is an essential part of the attractiveness of the Amber bid relative to Dalinar.
Let's say the 2020s lose at the end of this month, and Judge Stark then denies the Amber bid based on 2020 hindsight. Would you suggest selling PDVH to Gold Reserve, the runner-up, or would you suggest a full rebid where everybody's welcome to compete?
A rebid. Not a full rebid, but a rebid to a limited number of parties that have been active in the process. We would not go back out to 135 parties and have this go for months. It would be a rebid that I think could be accomplished in the space of a couple of weeks.
But there's a lot of parties that might have been on the sidelines and never made a bid because they were nervous about the 2020s, right?
It's possible.
So you'd be leaving those people out, wouldn't you?
Well, again, I think we have a pretty good idea of a relatively short list of bidders who would be effective in a rebid.
I think I've not yet Exhibit 148 into evidence, so I offer it.
Any objection?
Objection.
Admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. I understand the special master actually tried to negotiate a settlement with the 2020s back in 24, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And you weren't able to complete that, right?
That's correct. I think it could have been completed, but the sales process parties were violently objecting to it, so it never got to the point of being completed.
Let's put up Exhibit VP1, and let's blow up the top email. So this is an email from a lawyer at Paul Weiss, which I understand represents the 2020s, to Ray Schrock, who at the time was the lead lawyer for the special master. Is that right? And Mr. Estes writes, please see attached for a draft transaction support agreement, and there's an attachment that is titled Transaction Support Agreement. Do you see all that?
Yes, I do.
Do you recall that on or about September 13, 2024, you got a transaction support agreement draft from the 2020s?
Yes.
And the value of that was about $1.6 billion, right?
No, I believe it was somewhat higher than that. If my memory serves me correctly, there was $1.6 billion, but then a couple of other payments that got the total number up a little closer to 1.8.
Okay, so let's put up BP2, and let's look at the cover. Sir, is this the draft transaction support agreement you received from Paul Weiss on September 13, 2024?
It appears to be.
And let's take a look at page 9 where it defines transaction consideration, and let's blow up that paragraph. So the transaction consideration is defined as 1.6 or perhaps $1.7 billion, right?
Yes.
And as you recall, there were perhaps a few other payments, but not a significant change from that number, right?
Again, I think the total number I had in my mind was 1.8, but I might be mistaken.
Okay. I offer Exhibits 1 and 2 into evidence, CP1 and BP2.
No objection.
They're admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. This deal never got completed, right?
That's right.
You recall that Conoco and Crystallex opposed it, right?
Yes.
Now, in bargaining with the 2020s, we can take that down. In bargaining with the 2020s, their view of how aggressive they can be, I think, is informed by two things. One is their assessment of the merits of their case, and two is their assessment of how important it is to the special master to resolve their claim as part of a deal. Is that fair, Mr. Hiltz?
I would think so.
You never did any analysis of the risk posed by the 2020s to a closing of a sale, right?
I don't believe that's accurate. We did not assign probabilities to closing, if that's what you're referring to.
So you don't know, as you sit here today, how likely it is that the 2020s could block the closing of the deal that doesn't have a TSA, right?
I can't assign a probability to it, no.
Let's talk a bit about the topping period. First, I understand that the special master picked Red Tree at the stalking horse stage in order to keep bidders in the process. I think that was your testimony on direct. Is that right?
That's correct.
The theory was if you picked Gold Reserve, which had a higher bid, people would get discouraged and give up, right?
That's correct.
And then you might lose the possibility of having a bid that had more money than Red Tree, but also a TSA. Is that right?
Yes.
That plan didn't work out in the topping period, did it, Mr. Hills?
Not during the topping period, but it ultimately worked out exactly as we had hoped.
During the topping period, the only two bidders were Red Tree and Gold Reserve, right?
That's correct.
Red Tree didn't change its bid at all, right?
That's correct.
And Gold Reserve changed its bid by increasing it by about $400 million, right?
That's correct.
And 200 of those 400 were just the residual value of its own claim that it had held back before, right?
That's correct.
So there wasn't much movement during the topping period, was there?
Not a lot, no.
I want to put up exhibit, I think I may have forgotten to offer, no, never mind, sorry. Let's put up VP 75. Yeah, let's briefly take that down, please. So I want to come back briefly to the settlement proposal that the special master received from the 2020s for $1.6 billion. Sir, the special master never told Citgo or the Venezuela parties about that proposal, did it?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, to your knowledge, they never did.
Say I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, and you know if the special master ever told the court about that proposal?
I believe they did.
Okay, you weren't on any communications with the court about that proposal, right?
I don't recall at this point. A while ago.
Let's put up VP 75, and let's blow up the top email so we can see it. Or I'm sorry, the whole top half of the document. And so this is a communication among the special master's team on May 8th, 2025, right, Mr. Hiltz?
Just a second, let me read this, please.
And in the middle email, Mr. Pincus himself is writing, right?
Yes.
And he says, hey guys, no problem with canceling, I think referring to a call, but how are we going to get some movement during this SH period? Do you see that?
Yes.
Now, at this point, you were in the topping period, right, Mr. Hiltz?
Yes.
Fair to assume that Mr. Pincus was actually referring to the topping period?
Yes.
Okay. So the special master's team was concerned about not having any movement in the topping period, right?
Yes.
Ultimately, though, you didn't get any movement, right?
Well, again, I think if you are talking about specifically during the topping period, we did not get improved bids. However, right after the topping period, we did. So these people were working on improving their bids, but just couldn't meet the topping period deadline. So, for example, Red Tree was working to substantially increase its bid by getting deals with Receso and Coke. Obviously, Amber was working and ultimately materially increased their bid. Another party was also working to increase their bid, and all of those increases or indications of increases came in after the end of the topping period, but obviously these people were working hard during the topping period to achieve those improved bids.
During the topping period set by the court, essentially nothing changed from the stalking horse recommendation, right?
That's strictly correct, but as I'm saying, it's quite obvious from the outcome that people were working during that period, just couldn't quite get it done during the topping period deadline. So I think you're making an artificial distinction.
I offer Exhibit 175, Exhibit VP 75 into evidence.
No objection.
Submitted.
Now, I understand you received or had some conversations with Red Tree during the topping period. Is that right?
Yes.
Let's put up Exhibit VP 145, and let's blow up the top email. So this is your partner, Mr. Ying, writing to the Special Master's team, right?
Yes.
And this is on June 23rd, 2025, right at the end of the topping period, right?
Yes.
Okay, and writing in reference to Red Tree, that's what's abbreviated RT, right?
Yes.
And in the second sentence, he writes, the only guidance we plan on giving RT is that Rusoro is willing to extinguish $1.4 billion of their claim, and they should listen carefully to the parameters of Rusoro's ask. Do you see that?
Yes.
So the special master was encouraging Red Tree to improve its bid by adding Rusoro. Is that right?
Yes.
But that's the only guidance the special master gave Red Tree in the topping period, as you recall, right?
Well, I mean, I think we gave them overall advice that they needed to improve their price, and then specifically brought to their attention that there was a potential opportunity to get Red Tree on board.
I offer Exhibit DP 145 into evidence.
No objection. Submitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Let's talk about post the topping period. I understand the special master has made his final recommendation, the Amber bid with the TSA that we're here talking about today. Is that right, Mr. Hiltz?
Yes, it is.
You picked the Amber bid because it had a TSA and therefore, in your view, gave greater closing certainty than the Dalinar bid, right?
We picked it because we thought it had the best combination of price and certainty, and because we believe it creates this one-way option that gives additional flexibility to the court with the benefit of 20/20 hindsight from Judge Faila's decision in SDNY.
You've never undertaken any analysis of the closing certainty associated with Amber's bid, right?
When you say analysis, we have obviously reviewed Amber's bid carefully and have determined that there's not significant closing risk.
Have you done any calculation of the percentage likelihood of Amber's bid closing?
As I've stated repeatedly, we are not assigned probabilities to these outcomes.
There was some discussion yesterday about the concept of a deal that would involve a leverage recap, an equitization of claims, and perhaps an IPO. Do you recall that?
If you're referring to the testimony yesterday?
Yes.
Yes.
And the special master at different times in the process has considered transactions like that, right?
We've only considered them in the concept of a potential fallback plan in the event that the auction did not produce acceptable results.
So as a fallback, you might consider doing a leverage recap, which is to say just borrowing as much money against the assets of the company as you could, paying that to senior creditors, and then giving the equity to creditors further down the line. Is that right?
That would be a possible structure.
Okay, and it could be done perhaps in conjunction with an IPO of part of the stock to establish a value, and then you'd know exactly how many creditors to distribute the equity to, right?
That's possible, but let's also reflect the fact that there are significant limitations in terms of size and value in terms of affecting an IPO.
I understand there are some execution issues that would have to be worked through, but you've at least considered a deal like that, right?
Yes. The one comment I would make, however, is that with Mr. Weisenberger's statements yesterday that this kind of a plan could produce billions of additional value over the bid is just false on the face of it. And let me take you through some very simple math to illustrate that fact. Right now, Valero, which he's a director of, trades at 9 times EBITDA. Our company, based on our expected 2025 EBITDA, that would imply a total enterprise value of $9 billion if it were to trade comparable to Valero. Now, we know approximately how much money can be borrowed. It's about $4 billion, and that's evidenced by the financing commitments we see from the bidders who've been involved in this process. So you could borrow $4 billion. That would bring your leverage up to very substantial levels. A company with that degree of leverage is unlikely to trade at a multiple comparable to Valero, who has 1 times leverage. We would have 4 turns of leverage. So it's unlikely that you'd be able to get 9 times, so you probably get 7 or 8 times, for example. So we borrow $4 billion, you have a total enterprise value of 7 or 8, you have $3 to $4 billion worth of equity value, and we've got $2 billion or $3 billion of contingent liabilities. So the math that suggests that this plan can produce billions of dollars of incremental value is just absurd. absurd on the face of it.
I'm hesitant to make an objection as non-responsive in a bench trial, but since I'm on a time limit, I object to the answer non-responsive, and I move to strike it.
I'm going to deny that for now, but I would say try your best to give focused, quick answers to the questions. If he wants follow-up, he'll ask. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Let's take a look at VP 73. Okay, sir, I want to take a look at the bottom email in this chain, or actually, well, just to orient us, let's take a look at the top. This is Mr. Ying, the Special Masters team in February of 2025, right? What he says is what OneFin describes isn't new. Last time around, Contrarian proposed a deal using this construct. And at one point in November, we proposed to Crystallex and Conoco that we would attempt to organize a credit bid along these same lines, so there's no monopoly on a good idea. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay, let's see what the good idea was. Let's go down to the first email in the chain and blow it up. No, sorry, the page before this. There, the email in the middle of the page. Let's blow that up. So this is from someone named Graham Wark at OneFin Capital, and he's writing to Mr. Bentley, right?
Yes, if you could, I'd like an opportunity to read the email.
Yeah, certainly.
Yes.
So he writes in the highlighted text, starting with the second sentence, bringing the debt side of the purchase price is easy for vultures who are just going to bridge from the Citgo balance sheet, but these opportunistic bids will only ever get you approximately halfway to any fair value. Do you see that?
Yes.
Do you understand what he meant by vultures?
I'm not sure exactly who he's referring to, but yes, opportunistic investors.
There's a few of those in this process, aren't there?
No, I wouldn't characterize any of the people we're really negotiating now as vultures.
In the second highlighted block, Mr. Wark writes, I think the most equitable outcome is therefore one where cash makes up part of the equation from that debt bridge, and that PDVH shares are distributed pro rata to several of the junior creditors, not one, to make up the rest of fair value. These shareholders can later do an IPO of PDVH and realize market value after the ownership has changed hands. Under new ownership, it will be truly worth its fair value. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And that is essentially the leverage recap plus equitization of claims plus IPO concept we've been discussing, right?
Yes.
That's the plan Mr. Ying wrote was a good idea, right?
Well, again, we've always thought that was a good idea as a fallback plan if the auction failed to produce reasonable results. The drawback, obviously, is in the concept of the IPO and the subsequent distribution of those shares in order to allow creditors to actually realize their recoveries. That's going to take place over a significant period of time and is subject to significant risk. And not to repeat what I said just a moment ago, but if you actually run the numbers on a plan like this, based on today's multiples and the degree of leverage we see that can be obtained in the marketplace, you do not receive results that are necessarily superior to the bids that we have on the table in a meaningful way.
I offer Exhibit VP 73 into evidence.
No objection.
Thank you, Your Honor. You also considered a transaction involving an IPO, I think as far back as 2021. Do you recall that, Mr. Hiltz?
I don't have a specific recollection.
Let's take a look at VP 72. Sir, this is a presentation that the Special Master made to the court on June 14, 2021, right?
Yes.
And although 14 is in brackets, I think we discussed at your deposition that you're not aware of any later versions of this, right?
That's correct.
On page 2, at the bottom, the Special Master presents to the court the idea that in addition to a cash sale of 100% of equity in PDVH, value maximization could also potentially be achieved through a combination of initial public offering, equitization of claims, and equity or debt financing solutions. Is that right, Mr. Hiltz?
Yes.
And you believe that was possible at that time, right?
Yes, but let's recall what market conditions were like for refining and marketing companies at that period of time.
Want the rest of the answer?
Yes. Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Sorry.
Sorry to interrupt them.
I can't recall. I want to say in either 2021 or maybe it was 2022, Citgo had $4 billion worth of EBITDA. It has a number that's a fraction of that today. So that plans that may have made sense in the context of the environment in 2021 don't necessarily make the same degree of sense today. Again, we've always thought of this as a potential backup plan. I'm not suggesting that it's not a possible alternative to consider, but today it does not offer better value than the values we're receiving through the auction process.
So refining is a cyclical business, right?
Correct.
Prices go up and down in multi-year cycles, right?
Yes.
Investors know that, right?
Yes.
As of June 2021, do you know what Citgo's last 12 months EBITDA was?
Not off the top of my head.
That would take you back into the middle of COVID, wouldn't it?
Yes.
But as of June 2021, the Special Masters team thought this idea, an IPO and equitization of claims and equity or debt financing solutions, was good enough and workable enough to present it to the Honorable Court, right?
Yes.
I offer Exhibit 72 into evidence.
No objection.
Committed.
Let's take a look at Exhibit VP 74. This is a deck that the Special Masters team prepared for discussion with the Special Master, Mr. Pincus, right?
I can't tell by just looking at the cover page.
Well, you recall that in your work on this case, the Special Masters advisors did occasionally prepare decks like this to discuss with Mr. Pincus?
Yes.
And that was to keep him informed of the process and help him make decisions, right?
Yes.
Let's take a look at the second page of the deck, and let's blow up item 3 in the middle. Okay, this too talks about a potential IPO of the PDVH equity, right?
Yes.
And even September 2023, Special Master's advisors thought that was at least a good enough idea to discuss it with the Special Master himself, right?
Well, obviously, we were talking about a series of different structural alternatives. We wanted to make sure we considered those before deciding to move forward with the sales process that we moved forward with. So, yes, we discussed it.
I offer Exhibit VP 74 into evidence.
No objection.
I want to close by talking a bit about the valuation that you discussed with Mr. Friedman on direct. Sir, I understand that the Special Master undertook a valuation of PDVH at the outset of the sale process. Is that right?
No, that's not correct.
Well, you created a deck of preliminary valuation materials at the outset of the sale process, right?
We did at the request of Citgo.
Who at Citgo requested that?
I wasn't at the request, so I don't know which specific person requested it.
Did you ever have any calls or meetings with Citgo to discuss that valuation?
Not that I was on.
Okay, and you don't know what, if anything, Citgo's reaction to that valuation was, right?
No, I don't.
You couldn't identify any time the Special Masters team had any communication with Citgo about that valuation, right?
Well, I know that people from Evercore had communications. I'm just not privy to who that communication was with or what the substance of those discussions were.
Okay, you didn't feel it necessary to find out before you came and testified to the court that Citgo asked for that valuation?
No.
Sir, Evercore often conducts valuations in its sell-side engagements, right?
Sometimes.
You can't recall any sell-side engagement where Evercore did not conduct a valuation of the asset at the outset of the process, right?
I don't think that's accurate.
Sir, do you recall you gave a deposition in this case?
Yes.
Yeah, I asked you a series of questions, and you took an oath to tell the truth before we started?
Yes.
And you did tell the truth, right?
Yes.
Okay, let's bring up the deposition, page 35, line 21 through 36-1. I asked, can you recall any engagement where Evercore was engaged to sell something where you didn't conduct a valuation of the asset at the outset of the process? And you answered, I'm sure there have been some, but I don't have any specific recall on that.
Yes.
Did I ask that question, and did you give that answer?
Your Honor, I object this improper impeachment. He didn't say anything inconsistent today that he did at his deposition.
Seems that way to me as well, but I'm going to overrule the objection.
Thank you, Your Honor. Okay, as you sit here today, you can't identify any specific sell-side engagement where you didn't conduct a valuation, right?
Again, I've worked on many, many sell-side engagements. I don't have specific recollection of those where we did not conduct an upfront valuation, but my opinion...
You do a valuation at the outset of the process because the seller wants to have its own understanding of what the asset is worth before it goes to market it, right?
Sometimes.
The seller often wants to have a valuation as a baseline for evaluating bids, right?
Well, again, that normally comes at the end of the process where we provide a more formal valuation, i.e. in the form of fairness opinion that allows the seller to make a judgment about the adequacy of the bids that is received.
So when Evercore is advising a seller, either there's a valuation at the outset or a fairness opinion at the end, right?
Sometimes both.
Right. You don't just rely on the offers to tell you what the asset's worth, right?
Well, again, there are certain circumstances where we provide a fairness opinion. That's generally where public companies are involved. Oftentimes, if it's just a company selling one of its assets, they don't require a fairness opinion, but they may ask us for our views on value towards the end of the process, yes.
You can't recall any sell-side process you've been involved in where the seller just relied on the offers as the sole evidence of value, right?
Yes, I can. There are, again, I can't name them specifically, but there are certainly circumstances where we're selling assets where there is no opinion given, and the market is the arbiter of fair value.
You can't identify any specific engagement like that as you sit here today, right?
Not off the top of my head.
Let's take a look at VP 76. Okay, sir, do you recognize VP 76 as an email among the Special Master's advisors which attaches a valuation deck?
Yes.
That deck was created by a team of at least 3 people at Evercore, right?
Yes.
And then when those 3 people were done with it, the senior team, you, Mr. Ying, and Mr. Strong reviewed and discussed it, right?
Yes.
And after that, you shared it with Mr. Pincus for his reaction, right?
So it would appear.
Yeah, that's what's happening in Exhibit 76, right?
Yes.
Okay, you received Exhibit 76, right?
Yes, I did.
And you reviewed the valuation materials that come later in the document, right?
Yes.
I offer Exhibit 76 into evidence.
My only objection, I believe a copy of the same document was entered yesterday, so it would be duplicate.
If that's the case, then my offer is moot.
Let's admit it, and if you need to withdraw it because it's a copy, you'll let me know, but now it's admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Let's take a look at the valuation deck that follows. Next page. Okay, so this is the preliminary valuation materials you've been discussing, right?
Yes.
And then if we look at the summary on page 6, I think that's page 9 of the exhibit page numbering there. I understand that Evercore conducted what's identified as a mid-cycle EBITDA valuation. Is that right? That's presented in the second column from the right. Is that right?
Yes.
And that's a form of a market multiples analysis, right?
Yes.
In that sort of analysis, you calculate an enterprise value over EBITDA multiple for a group of peer companies, and then you apply that to the EBITDA of the subject company for a given period, right?
You calculate mid-cycle multiples for comparable companies, and then apply that to mid-cycle EBITDA of Citgo to arrive at a value. Yes.
And the top end of the mid-cycle range you calculate here on Exhibit 76 is about $12 billion, right?
Yes.
And that's without the application of any premium for control or any other things a buyer might see value in, right?
Yes.
I want to take a look at the detail on the calculation of the mid-cycle EBITDA value. I think that's presented on page 8. Go down, keep clicking, and I'll tell you when to stop. Keep going. There, stop. Okay, this is page 12 of Exhibit 76. This is where you talk about the calculation of the mid-cycle EBITDA value, right?
Yes.
And refining, as we've discussed, is a cyclical business, right?
That's correct.
So if you're conducting a market multiples valuation at any given point in time, it might not be reflective of the full cycle of the refining industry, right?
That's correct.
So in a valuation like this, you might conduct a mid-cycle EBITDA valuation that you think is representative of the whole cycle, right?
Again, that's one of the methodologies that you could utilize here.
It's intended to be valid not just at the time you issue the valuation, but potentially across the whole earnings cycle, right?
Theoretically, yeah.
Now, the way Evercore calculated the mid-cycle EBITDA valuation in this case was to use the average of 2012, 2013, and 2018, and essentially average the valuations you would get across those years, right?
I don't recall which. Wait a minute.
Well, look at the gray box in the middle of page 12.
Yes.
Okay, so that's what Evercore did, right?
Yes.
And Evercore picked those years because they were believed to best reflect a normal operating and macroeconomic environment, right?
Yes.
Now, let's go back to page 10 of the document. Sorry, keep going up toward the top till I tell you to stop. No, the other way. So keep going. There, stop. Okay, so we're back at the summary page, which is 6 of the document's internal pagination and 9 of the exhibit. Okay, we discussed how we calculate the mid-cycle EBITDA, and we see the final top end of the range that the special master came up with was about $12 billion, right?
Yes.
Now, hypothetically, if you were to apply a 20% premium on top of that, the value would be in the range of $14 to $15 billion, right?
I don't understand why you would provide that kind of a premium.
Well, in your experience as an investment banker, you've seen a lot of transactions in the public space where buyers paid a premium to the trading price of the asset, right?
Yes.
And if you applied a premium here, that $12 billion value would have to be even higher, right?
Well, I'd make two or three points. The first of which is I have never seen, other than Dr. Albero, seen anyone apply a control premium to a comparable company analysis. I've reviewed hundreds of fairness opinions in the course of my career. I sit on Evercore's opinion committee, and I have never seen that done, number one. Number two, you're implying that a premium observed over a nominal stock price that has been paid, and I'll assert that the average premium in public company control transactions is 20% or maybe even slightly higher, okay? But that premium is not a function purely of control. Yet there are plenty of reasons why people pay a premium. For example, the company could be trading at less than the comparable companies, and that's why you end up paying a premium. There are, in many cases, synergies, and that's why you pay the premium. So the concept of taking this nominal premium that you've observed, assuming that that's, quote, a control premium, and applying it to the comparable companies multiple is not appropriate.
My question was just a math problem. It's essentially 12 billion, 1.2 equals 14 point something. Is that accurate?
But I disagree with multiply it by 1.2.
Okay, well, you'll have a chance to discuss all of this with Mr. Friedman on redirect if he thinks that's a worthwhile use of his client's time. Okay, for now, if you were to apply a 20% premium to the $12 billion mid-cycle EBITDA valuation, you'd be in the range of 14 to 15 billion, right?
That's mathematically correct.
And as you've just testified, there are a lot of reasons that buyers apply a premium to trading price in buying a public company, right?
Yes.
So if you have a valuation, the mid-cycle EBITDA valuation that's based on public company stock valuations, it's possible somebody might pay more than that, right?
It's possible.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Thank you. Anybody else cross-examining this witness?
Your Honor, we have some binders. I think the final recommendation or the is in evidence. I apologize, I don't have the cross site that would expedite matters.
Do you think it may be in evidence and in front of this witness?
I'm not sure if it's in front. Do you have the final recommendation in your binders?
In approach. Yeah.
Mr. Hiltz, good to see you again. Matt Kirtland for Gold Reserve. Stalking horse phase. Mr. Pincus, the special master himself, selected Gold Reserve originally, correct, to be the stalking horse bidder? Am I remembering your deposition testimony correctly?
He didn't select them. He was leaning that way, I guess I would phrase it.
And then the special master's advisors, Evercore and Weil, convinced him to take a different path. Is that right?
I think we discussed it, and he eventually agreed to take a different path, yes.
And your reasoning was what?
Essentially, our reasoning was that the criteria that one should use in selecting a stalking horse bid is different than the criteria that you would use in selecting a final bid. I think Bob was approaching it as though there were no difference between the two. In Evercore's view and Weil's view, the objectives in terms of picking a stalking horse and the criteria that should therefore be applied are different than the criteria you would apply in the selection of a final bidder.
And you were afraid, Evercore and Weil, that if the Dalinar Gold Reserve was picked as the stalking horse, that other purchasers might not come over the top of their price, yes?
Yes.
And so you understood that in the topping period, a price had to be higher than the stalking horse bidder?
No.
Wasn't the rationale that you stated earlier?
I'm sorry, higher than the stalking horse bidder?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we did. I apologize.
This is the concept of the topping period.
Yes. I misspoke. Sorry.
So in the topping period, you understood that the price of a topping bid had to top the stalking horse bid, yes?
Well, again, we were cognizant of the comments that Judge Stark made in his stalking horse order, which suggested that if the price were not approved, he might well not approve the red tree bid.
Right.
So we certainly understood and expected that the price would be higher at the end of the topping period than the stalking horse bid.
You were worried that because my client's stalking horse bid was about $7 billion, that somebody might not come over that price, and therefore you would impede price competition, yes?
We were worried that there were potential bidders who, if they felt the only criteria was price, which we would be indicating by choosing the gold reserve bid, that they would cease to compete and we would not have competition during the topping period. That's correct.
And then you applied a different metric during the final recommendation or the no-shop period. You allowed bids to come under the established price, yes?
When you say a different recommendation, what do you mean?
During the topping period, you said you selected the red tree bid because you were concerned that by selecting the Dalinar $7 billion bid, that parties would not be able to exceed the price and therefore wouldn't participate. Yes?
Right.
And so the expectation was that bids in the topping period did have to exceed the Dalinar $7 price. Yes?
No.
No. So you've confused me then. I apologize. You're then you select the Dalinar bid as the stalking horse bid because you were concerned about people not coming over the top, but now you're saying that people could have come under the bottom.
I don't understand what you mean by your question. What I would say is this. We chose the stalking horse bid to emphasize certainty rather than price in order to maximize competition during the topping period. At the end of the topping period, we were faced with a choice between the Dalinar bid, and what we were trying to foreclose was a circumstance where, again, as I explained earlier, we might get a bid that had quite a bit more certainty than the Dalinar bid and was only $50 million less, and we wanted to maintain the option of getting that kind of a bid. At the end of the topping period, we had not received any of those bids. So we were faced at the end of the topping period merely with the choice of the existing red tree bid or your bid. And as I stated earlier, we used different criteria in selecting a final bid than we did during the selection of the stalking horse. So we chose the Dalinar bid. However, subsequent to that, we have received offers that we believe offer a better combination of price and certainty and have chosen those bids.
So let's go to the final recommendation, Mr. Hiltz. It is in front of you in your binder at GR 63, the second tab. Do you see that there, sir?
Yes, I do.
It's not entered in evidence, Your Honor. I would move that it be entered in evidence.
Any objection? It's admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Hiltz, you submitted a sworn affidavit in support of the Special Master's final recommendation, yes?
Yes.
And Dalinar bid that was recommended had the highest purchase price of all the bids submitted during the topping period, yes?
During the topping period, yes.
And thereafter?
Yes.
The final recommended topping
at the end of the topping period?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And if you turn to para 11 of the final recommendation.
What page?
On page 5. If you look at the second sentence, the special master there represents to the court that his conclusion that he reasonably believes the Dalinar bid is capable of being timely consummated. Yes?
Yes.
And that's taking into account the court's guidance, including the court's various orders, and this June 24th ex parte conference, and the bidding procedures, yes?
Yes.
And then, sir, if you turn to paragraph 82 on page 33.
Yes. Paragraph, I'm sorry, which paragraph?
Yeah, sorry, it's got the wrong pagination. It's 82B.
That's not page 33.
Yeah, that's on page 31, sir.
All right.
And if you go down to the bottom, the final sentence of the recommendation expresses the special master's conclusion that the risks relating to the PDVSA 2020 bonds are significantly outweighed by the difference in purchase price between the Red Tree Stalking Horse bid and the Dalinar bid. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, Red Tree had a TSA with the 2020 bondholders. And if you look back at the prior, sir, paragraph 81, which is just on the page before, page 30, are you with me?
I think it starts over on page 29.
Yeah, it goes down to the next page, page 30, thank you. So we're looking at, keep going, there you are. Yeah, the even if arguendo, you're with me?
I'm reading paragraph 81. Just give me a moment, please.
Yes.
Yes.
In the last sentence of paragraph 81, the special master expresses that his skepticism that even if Red Tree had gotten Resoro to contribute its $1.5 billion judgment, bringing the Red Tree price to $5.3 billion, special master is skeptical that any value attributable to the revised Stalking Horse bid on account of closing certainty, and that's a reference to the TSA that Red Tree has, yeah?
Yes.
Would be sufficient to make up for the over $2 billion purchase price difference, yes?
Yes.
Do you agree with that part of the recommendation when it was submitted, sir?
Yes.
Now, if we looked at paragraph 85 of recommendation, Mr. Hiltz, and I apologize for going quickly, but time is tight on our clock. So if we go to paragraph 85 on page 33, just read that. And do you see here that the special master is in effect the Red Tree proposed TSA because it does not take into account the possibility that the 2020 bondholders would be unsuccessful in the pending SDNY litigation. It's in the middle of the paragraph there.
Yes.
And this refers to the option that the special master wanted Red Tree to negotiate with the 2020s, whereby if they lost in New York, they wouldn't have to pay them the amounts in their TSA, yes?
Well, again, it refers to what I term as the ratchet provision. I think as Mr. Turkel testified, it's a completely unreasonable expectation to think that the 2020s would agree to a settlement that only would apply if they won their litigation. Because if they win, actually their claim would be worth potentially more than the amount of the settlement. And if they lose, they get nothing. That's not a realistic expectation that any party would enter into such an agreement. So I think what we were more focused on was, again, what I would term a ratchet provision, where you might have some reduction in the amount of the settlement to the 2020s in the event that there was an adverse decision, but certainly not eliminating paying them anything.
This is what you asked Red Tree to try to negotiate with the 2020s, yeah?
That's correct.
And the Red Tree tried and failed. The 2020s didn't agree to it, right?
That's correct.
And you also asked Elliott and Amber to try and get the same similar provision in their TSA with the 2020s, yes?
Yes.
And they also failed. The 2020s didn't agree to it.
Yes.
Now, this criticism of Red Tree is not in your updated final recommendation of the Amber bid, correct? You can pull that down for just a second. Switching gears slightly. Mr. Hiltz, you're familiar generally in an auction with what's known as an overbid minimum?
I am.
An overbid minimum is generally to incentivize the submission of higher price topping bids that do not derail the sale process. Is that right?
Yes.
And in this case, you recall that the overbid minimum set by the court during the no-shop period was $50 million, subject to the special master's discretion to adjust to that amount?
Yes.
It's correct that the special master never got permission from the court to adjust the $50 million overbid minimum. Is that right?
I'm not aware whether it's specific permission from the court or not.
And the overbid minimum is a form of a bidder protection, right?
Yes.
Just like a no-shop or non-solicitation, correct?
Yes.
And you agree with me, sir, that an overbid minimum that can be completely eliminated does not provide any actual bidder protection?
Yes.
Now, when Amber Elliott submitted their unsolicited competing proposal to the special master on or about August 8th, it has a lower headline price than the existing Dalinar final recommended bid, correct?
That's correct.
And as I understood, strike that. The special master didn't ask Elliott or Amber to increase their price to comply with an overbid minimum.
Well, we've always been asking them to increase their price. We didn't, I don't think, specifically reference the overbid minimum.
You didn't say, there's an overbid minimum here, guys. You need to bid above the $7.382 billion of the Dalinar bid.
Again, our reading of the language surrounding the overbid minimum, and I can't recall which document it's in, was followed by a comment from the judge of continuing to achieve the best possible outcome of price and certainty. We did not believe that the intention of the overbid minimum was to prevent the kind of circumstance where we find ourselves now, where we have a bid that we believe represents the best possible combination of price and certainty, but does not have a higher headline price. We didn't think it was the court's intention to prevent us from exploring and considering bids of that nature.
Understood your explanation for why you didn't do it, but just to take it bite by bite, given our time constraints, the special master and his advisors didn't tell Amber and Elliott that they had to bid over the 7.382, correct?
Again, I haven't been party to every single call with Amber and Elliott, but certainly that was not stated on any call that I was on.
You agree with me that Elliott Investment Management, a very large, well-financed hedge fund, has the financial ability to bid over the $7.382 billion, yes?
That's completely irrelevant.
Before we get to your thinking,
yes.
Do they have the answer is yes?
Yes.
Do you agree with me, sir, that Special Master lost the ability to test whether Elliott would pay above the Dalinar price by not demanding that they, in fact, pay above that price?
No, I think that Elliott, if they felt that the asset was worth paying that price, they would have considered doing so. My guess is that Elliott looks at the price that they're paying, including the settlement with the 2020s, relative to what they think the value of the asset is, and that determines the level of their bid. I mean, it's like suggesting that, do I have the ability to pay $20 for a pack of gum? Yes, I do. But would I do that? No, of course I wouldn't.
What was the
I don't think a pack of gum is worth $20.
What was the price of Elliott's bid during the stalking horse period?
Oh gosh, it was much lower. I can't recall the exact number.
Much higher or lower?
Much lower. I don't
Lower
recall.
than what?
Than its current bid.
So it increased its price?
Yes.
Because other bids had come in and it felt it needed to increase its price?
Yes.
And the amount that Elliott was going to pay to the AJCs in its first bid in 2024, when you take out the escrows at closing, was what? Zero, right?
I'm sorry, restate that question.
Back to Elliott's first bid, back in 2024. The one with the escrow.
2024, yes.
Remember the escrow bid that everybody hated? Yeah?
Yes.
At closing, Elliott was going to pay the AJC something like zero at closing, right?
Very low number. I don't recall whether it was zero, but yes.
And then in the stalking horse period, they increased that amount to $4 billion, correct?
Well, again, from Elliott's standpoint, you can't ignore the fact that they were prepared to pay the amounts that went into escrow. I mean, that's actually money out of Elliott's pocket. So to suggest that they were paying zero is not accurate at all. They were paying the amount, including the escrow amounts.
Between the stalking horse amount that Elliott bid, which was circa $4 billion, and the amount that it bid, what was its price in the topping period of its non-conforming bid? Do you recall?
No, I don't, Matt, off the top of my head. Sorry.
But in any event, you do recall going from circa $4 billion in the stalking horse period to now they're at 5.9, right? Is their price?
5.9 or 6.4, depending on how you treat the $75 million of consideration that's been offered to Gold Reserve.
Right.
In exchange for 500 of claims.
So they are willing to increase their price at least from the 4-ish by about $2 billion to the 5.9, correct?
Again, I can't recall the $4 billion number, whether that's accurate or not, but yes, they have increased their price.
So there's no way for the special master to know what Elliot's price is. I mean, what you've just described is a 50% increase in a couple months. And so if you don't enforce the overbid minimum, sir, and demand that they pay a price higher than the 7.382, I come back to my question. Haven't you lost the possibility of getting the sale process the highest possible price?
Well, again, we encouraged Elliott during this period of time, ending August 22nd, to improve their bid. And in fact, we pushed them to, as you know, try to reach agreement with Gold Reserve and potentially to dedicate monies that, if Gold Reserve didn't want to take them, would go to other additional judgment creditors. So we have been pushing Elliott on price all along, and I think it's clear that, Elliott was putting their best foot forward. I don't think that demanding that Elliott meet your price would have been productive in that process.
We'll never know, will we?
Well, again, I think if Elliott wants to own this asset and believes that the asset was worth it, they would have paid more. But I think that Elliott's making a judgment that, about what's the asset worth versus the total amount that they're paying.
You would agree with me that Elliott, as a rational economic actor, wants to acquire the asset for the lowest possible price, yes?
Yes.
The Elliott-Amber bid that's now before the court, one of the critical documents is this TSA, yes?
Yes.
You've never reviewed this document, correct?
As is typical in engagements involving both the bankers and lawyers, I relied on Weil's legal team to review that document.
So still today, you've never reviewed the document?
No, I have not.
And the Special Master's updated final recommendation of the Amber Energy bid presents no analysis of the TSA's terms, correct? It just takes it as a document and then assumes that it has, in fact, a viable settlement with the 2020s. Would you agree with that character?
No, I don't agree with that at all. That document was reviewed by Weil's team in depth, and advice was provided to the Special Master based on that review. I mean, to suggest that we're just accepting that document without any review is not at all correct.
There's regulatory risks with the Amber Energy bid. You describe them in your declaration. You talk about OFAC approvals, antitrust approvals. You're familiar with what I'm referring to, Mr. Hill?
Yes, I am.
Am I correct that you don't know what the consequences are for the Amber Energy bid if any of its antitrust filings, particularly in the 3 foreign jurisdictions we talked about earlier, are not accepted?
I don't personally know, but we've reviewed that with Weil's antitrust team and are relying on their advice in that regard. I can't think of any transaction that I've been involved with where I've been asked to personally review antitrust issues in Mexico and Morocco.
How about the Netherlands? No?
Thank you for clarifying.
But sitting here today, Mr. Heltz, you don't know, testify as only witness. If the antitrust filing in the Netherlands or Morocco is rejected, what the consequence is to Amber Energy's bid, correct?
I can testify that I've been advised by Weil's antitrust teams that they do not have concerns about regulatory approvals, particularly given the hell or high water nature of the contract.
Well, just tell us, what is the consequence then if the Netherlands antitrust filing is rejected?
I don't know that.
You don't know? Or in Morocco?
No.
The Special Master and his advisors never performed an analysis of the likelihood of the 2020 bondholders winning or before Judge Fela, correct?
If what you're referring to is a probability analysis, that would be correct.
Special Master's view is that an assignment of probabilities is subjective and not instructive in this circumstance, correct?
We think it's completely subjective and have been advised by Weil that they wouldn't know what probabilities to assign to these various things. So what we did do, as I described before, is looked at 4 different scenarios representing possible outcomes, looked at the recovery to creditors that we felt would be achieved under each of those outcomes, and made a judgment based on those reviews that the Amber Energy bid offered the best possibility of price and certainty, particularly, and this is important, given the one-way option that we are now faced with, given the fact that we know that Judge Phalo will rule before Judge Stark will rule. And again, that creates a favorable one-way option that allows us to protect the downside and capture discount in the event that we choose the Amber bid and the 2020s win. And again, if the 2020s lose and Judge Stark determines that the Amber bid unduly enriches the 2020 holders, he can reject the Amber bid. We go into a quick rebid, and we think that will be a positive thing for creditors and will improve their recoveries.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm going to have to call for our lunch break at this point. It's 12:45. We'll try and get started at 1:15. I'll be in a recess.